Welcome into Inside Press Box. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of Pressbox and PressBoxOnline.com. And with me is Luke Jackson. And as you can tell, the drab reality of our lives is back. This is what we look like when we're in Baltimore, instead of those sexy backgrounds in Sarasota. Luke, how are you, buddy?
Tired. Like I was saying before we went on, I have a newfound respect for the reporters who do this for 6 weeks rather than 6 days because I am exhausted today.
How about forget the reporters? How about the players that play 162 games and travel for 81 of those games?
Yeah, I'm
It's
again
pretty
newfound respect.
amazing.
It is pretty amazing because NFL players they only travel 9 or 10 times per year because and then
Right,
they're home for the rest of that week,
right.
getting ready for the next game at home.
And they
So
can be home for 3 weeks at a time.
right, right. And with baseball, they're just constantly traveling. They can only be in one place for 3 days sometimes, and home stands are sometimes pretty short. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, newfound respect for Luke Jackson. He's a trooper out on the road. Want to remind folks that we are brought to you by AJ Michaels, and they asked the question, what company has the expertise and technology to make your home substantially more energy efficient, comfortable, and even virus free? That would be AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com. We're also brought to you by the Costas Inn. You'll hear a little bit more about them later. And also brought to you by Superbook Sports. Baseball is just starting. March Madness is upon us. Take advantage. It won't always be there. This first bet bonus match of $250 by using the code StanCharles23 or Glenn Clark 23. It's all one word, can be lowercase or it can be capitals, but Stan Charles 23, Glenn Clark 23, and you get that 250 first bet bonus match, win or lose. And we are also now brought to you by the new Atmans at Harbor Point. If you like and are craving that classic New York deli experience, look no further than the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. Corned beef piled high, hand rolled bagels, and something different, a bar. Atman's has food and drink specials every day. And when the season starts, you can watch the game at the bar down at Atman's. Enjoy a delicious corned beef sandwich or any of the deli delicacies they have. Luke, 19-5, the Orioles win today, beat the Toronto Blue Jays in Dunedin. I think it was 13-8. And I'll start with this. It's not a mea culpa. It's not like I said Jackson Holiday was flopping, but I said the job was there still for him to win. I didn't think he would win it. He had a good first day in the last push to make this roster. He hit a home run today off of Chad Green, a veteran relief pitcher of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, and that's really the big question in terms of this roster composition right now is if Jackson Holiday is going to make this team. That's what all the position player battles sort of center around. I was on with Glenn Clark a few days ago when we were down in Sarasota, and I told him that I thought there was a better than 50-50 shot that Jackson was going to make the team because I said that I thought he was probably 90 to 95% ready. And because of the CBA ramifications, if you think that he can handle a little bit of failure early on when he might not be 1000% ready, that it would make sense to bring him to the major league level right away. And we don't have to get in the machinations of that. It's pretty boring.
Actually, I would like to get into that.
Okay.
Why don't you explain it for those that don't understand? Because maybe it's me being old-fashioned too, but I saw a roster dilemma and I wasn't thinking so much about the ramifications. Explain those for people.
So let me go back to Adley Rutschman. When he was called up in late May after his injury, remember, he was going to crack the roster, then he got
Yep.
hurt, and then he basically had to have his own spring training on rehab assignment for 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever it was, down in the minor leagues. Remember, we saw him in Aberdeen.
Yep.
Well, he ended up playing really well that year once he got up to the major league levels. And, the first 2 weeks were a little bit of a struggle, but he got it together and he was really good. And because he finished second in the Rookie of the Year voting to Julio Rodriguez, he got the full year of service. Okay.
So
So,
that's something that's good for the player.
Correct. That's great for
Okay,
the player.
okay.
That is great for the player. But because, and had he started that year with the Orioles and had another 7 weeks of track record to look back on for
And won the
rookie of the
rookie
year,
and
he
won the
might have
rookie.
won rookie of the year. And if that were the case, the Orioles would have gotten a really good pick out of it. I forget the exact name of the program, but the Orioles would have gotten a pick probably in like the low 30s.
Okay.
So if the same thing were to happen, except for the injury with Jackson Holiday, and he comes up in May and does really well and finishes in the top two of Rookie of the Year voting, he gets a full year of service, and the Orioles don't get the pick to go with it. He has to start on the major league roster and win Rookie of the Year to get that pick. And there are some other things that other parts of the program that
All right,
again we don't have to dig
you've
into. There,
explained that. So now let's hit the other side of the equation. How do the Orioles, if they decide he's that we're going to take advantage of that, and we think he's 95% ready, or 90%,
Mhm.
whatever it is, how are they going to get down to 26 people? Because
Whew.
part of my scenario was getting by the roster building right now and worrying what happens 35 days from now when you bring them up.
Whew. That's a really good question. The unfortunate part for a guy like Connor Norby is that he's probably behind Jackson
Well,
Holiday, and
yeah,
he's
but
a major league hitter.
Norby's not in the equation. It's
He's not
Westberg,
right,
it's Urias,
right,
it's Cowser, it's Stowers,
right,
McKenna.
right. And what I led off with that just by explaining how deep they are. That
Yeah,
Connor
they
Norby
are
is a
deep.
major league hitter, and he's not even in the roster picture at the moment. Now, one
And I
injury
think
changes.
and I think Mayo's a major league hitter just
Right.
about.
Mayo might be a major league hitter, and right now he's not in the opening day roster picture at the
Right.
moment. Again, one injury can change everything. Jordan Westberg was hit by a pitch in the elbow today. Apparently he's fine. Apparently that
Okay.
was a nothing burger, but he was
And
taking a
I'd throw Kerstad in there. I don't think
sure.
he's done enough to really put versus Cowser and Stowers.
And the other thing with Kerstad is that he's competing with a lot of guys who do similar things. Like
Yeah.
O'Hearn is a left-handed hitting corner guy. Cowser is a left-handed hitting outfielder. So, and Stowers is a left-handed hitting outfielder with power. So he's competing against a lot of guys who are having better springs than him that do similar things. So I think Kerstad could use just a little more time down at Norfolk, but and so could Mayo, and Norby probably could too. Probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Again, all these guys we're talking about have options, so it's not like they're going away. It's not like they're going to the moon. Uh, but in terms of your question about the roster composition, I do think Ramon Urias sticks around as veteran insurance at second and third base because if something happens to one of your young guys that one of them just isn't ready, you have a veteran who is going to be adequate. It's not going to be great, but it's going to be
Mhm.
adequate, and he can really play third base. So I think he sticks around. The
So
question for me,
we know that there's a possibility. I only saw Mountcastle play one game in 10 games.
apparently he's supposed to play tomorrow, maybe the next
Okay.
day, but will he have enough of at bats at that point to be opening day ready? It'll be close.
Okay.
It'll be close.
It's
So,
a sticky thicket. I'll throw one more thing into you. We talked to Brandon Hyde about this on Sunday. Was 12 pitchers and
mhm,
14 position players, and he kind of poo-pooed that you really
yeah,
need 13 and all that. Cole Irvin, his last two starts, has been rather terrible to be quite
okay.
blunt about it. And is he pitching his way kind of off this team?
Well, there, if he's not the number five starter, then Julio Teheran is.
Yeah.
So I do think that Cole Irvin will still get the first shot at that number five starter. We were talking about this last night that because of the off days early in the season, they might only need four starters in the first, 7 to 10 days. I haven't mapped all that out, so they might not even need Cole Irvin in the early going. But one thing to remember about Cole is that he really got off to a rough start last year,
Yeah.
and he got sent down, figured it out, but he had an option. They could do something with him if he got off to a poor start. They don't have that option this year. He's out of options.
And
So if
he would most likely be picked up, I think, by somebody.
right. And so if he gets off to another rough start, he's got to figure it out in the major leagues, whether it's in the rotation or the bullpen. So that's something to keep in mind. I will say that he started off spring training throwing like 96. He was chucking gas. And Apparently he was really excited about his offseason work and everything he did to get in better shape, add more velocity, the whole 9 yards. And so he's probably excited early in camp to show what he had. And I think today he was more like 92, 93, which is Cole Irvin from
Yep.
Oakland, Cole Irvin last year. And so maybe that's still more Cole Irvin because believe me, the Cole Irvin who throws up to 96 projects to be a way different pitcher than the one who's throwing 91, 92. And so can they get that velocity back up at a consistent level? That might tell the tale for the season.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have Julio Teheran making the team as the
I do as
13th
well.
as the 13th pitcher. And it could be interesting to see if there's a very quick flip-flop there with Tehran becoming the fifth starter. Wells certainly has outpitched both of them. So Wells would be my number four,
Mm-hmm.
unless you really want to break it up with the left-hander. I don't see that being the case. So I think Irvin and Tehran are kind of right there as the fifth starters right now. But uh, I maintain that getting down to that 26 is really complicated because
Yeah, absolutely.
we haven't really explained if Holiday does make the team. Does Westberg, who has one option left, does he go down? Uh, because
And
the
the other thing we didn't talk about is Mateo, who's
yeah,
probably going to be in the lineup against left-handed pitching this year,
yep.
I would imagine. And so
I mean,
Brandon's
and I
got
would
him.
think it's still an attractive trade quality,
Could be.
trade person for somebody, but that doesn't help 1 week from tomorrow or
Right.
something like that.
Right. And yeah, we've seen Mateo play, I think, 5 different positions this camp. So that's shortstop, second. I don't know if he's played any third.
Center
And
field
then center field,
and
left and
right
right.
field. I saw him play with right
Yeah,
field
we
one day.
saw him play left and right field in the same
Yeah.
game the other day.
Yep.
So they're obviously preparing him for a super utility role this year. And I would imagine that he's going to hit against left-handed pitching. He's going to be in
So,
there.
so
So
maybe it's as simple as Holiday's on the team and a fifth outfielder is not on the team.
could be, could be,
Mateo and O'Hearn are kind of the fifth outfielders.
could be.
But this pivots back to
Right,
Mountcastle and his availability as well,
right.
if
Yeah,
he's
we've
ready.
got to see him in a game first.
Yeah.
He's got to get some at bats put together.
Let's talk though about some observations and not to be redundant. Maybe some folks have heard these things and they
Mhm.
haven't, but let me tell folks about the Costas first, and
Sure.
then we'll give some observations that we had this spring, including traffic in in Sarasota and what they should do about the lights down there, right, Luke? We're both
Oh,
agreeing on
you are you have some hot takes about that far more than
yeah.
me.
Yeah. Anyway, because I was the one behind the wheel.
Yes.
The Costas Inn has been a Baltimore staple for over 50 years in the same place at 4100 North Point Boulevard. One of the good things about getting home to Baltimore is you're not that far away from the Costas Inn. So Luke and I will make a point of watching a game one night and meeting there for dinner, uh, taking advantage of great specials Monday through Friday. Crabs anytime, but you have to call ahead to reserve your crabs. 410-477-1975. Remember, you want to call up, ask the day you want to come, what the crab availability will be, what kind of sizes they have, the cost of those crabs, and you want to reserve them because it's really hard to walk into a good crab place like the Costas Inn and just expect you and your buddies to order 2 dozen crabs and get them. So keep that in mind. The Costas Inn, 50 plus years over there, same great location. You can also order online, pay for it online, and pick it up without getting out of your car. Go to CostasInn.com. Those are some of my observations about the Costas Inn. Now, some observations down at spring training. Luke, I wrote these things the other day, so I apologize if somebody heard me, read me, and now saying, hey, you said the same thing. But I tell you, 3 players that I didn't give much of a chance to make this team coming into camp were Kyle Stowers. Couldn't have cared less
Mhm.
don't have anything against him personally. Could have cared less where he went. But Kyle Stowers, Um, Ramon Urias, who I thought had a kind of a down year last year, looked more pedestrian, I would say, would both defensively and offensively. And then Keegan Aiken, who I thought, well, he's run his course here. And I can't tell you how impressed I was with all three of them, the professionalism of the way Ramon Urias plays third base, the way he attacks his at bats. Kyle Stowers, like a whole newfound person. And you and I had the benefit of reading that story from all the way back in 2015 about a dear friend of his who passed away from a rare, I think it was a brain cancer, I think he died of. Um, but he's got a lot of reserve of character that I didn't foresee, and then read the article after that. And then Keegan Aiken, what can you say? He looks like a different person. He um, he just really attacks the strike zone. And I think he's pitched seven in the third inning. He's given up one walk, one hit, and no runs, 10 strikeouts or something like that. Your thoughts on those three people?
Yeah, let's start with Keegan Aiken, who was one of the first pitchers I saw when I got down to Sarasota. And I was like, wow, that looks like the first half of 22. Looks healthy. The tempo in his delivery is back. The hoppy fastball at the top of the zone is back. This guy's going to help the team. And I forgot in looking back at his stats, and I have a story on Keegan Aiken and Dylan Tate trying to bounce back from injuries and help this team on PressBoxOnline.com. I had forgotten when I was looking up stats for that story that Keegan Aiken had, I believe it was 28 or 29 outings in 2022 of six or more outs. He was a workhorse for Brandon Hyde. I think he threw 81 and two-thirds innings out of the bullpen that year, which is a lot. That's
Yeah,
about as much as you can do out of the bullpen in this day and age. And it was a lot of multi-inning appearances where he really bailed out Brandon Hyde some out of some tough situations with starters not going very deep. So if that guy's back, that's a big help to Brandon, especially without DL Hall around.
yeah.
So, and then Dylan Tate, I thought looked good too. That same
It's
day.
interesting. It's interesting how the trade for Corbin Burns may have had the unintended consequences of making Keegan Aiken
Mhm.
say, "Hey, I've got an opportunity now.
Yeah, if
A
you have
shot
eight,
there for me."
yeah, if you've got eight relievers in your bullpen on opening day, you would really like three of them to be left-handed
Yep,
to give yourself as many options as possible. And Brandon Hyde brought up with Keegan that when he's going well, he can get lefties and righties out. That top of the zone fastball plays well against both hitters. So that's something to keep an eye on. And then you mentioned Ramon Urias. We saw him make some really nice plays at third. I came away from our week thinking that he's definitely going to be on the team unless there's a trade for some reason,
yep.
and that he's going to be better,
That's a possibility.
and that he's going to be veteran insurance at multiple positions that feature young guys who you're
Yep.
not 100% sure what they can give you. You're pretty sure what Ramon Urias is going to give you. Again, very serviceable, not great, but very serviceable. And the last one,
Kyle
remember,
Stowers. Kyle Stowers.
so Kyle, first saw Kyle in 2019 in Aberdeen, and I said, "Boy, he can really hit the ball hard, but boy, that is
When he
a
hits it.
long swing.
Yeah.
That is a really long swing." And I said, "There's no way that he's going to do well in Double A unless he cuts that swing down." Well, he powered through Double A with the same swing. I said, "There's no way he can get through Triple A with that same long swing." Powered through Triple A. I said, I don't know about him in the major leagues with that long a swing, and he got exposed a little bit.
Yeah.
And he got humbled a little bit, and he just couldn't catch up to that high fastball up in the zone with that swing he had.
And one thing
Yep.
about baseball pitchers, word gets around.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And especially in this day and age, it only takes one at bat to really get a
Yep.
book on somebody.
Yeah.
So it seemed to me that he has cut. I didn't get a chance to talk to him down there. I wish I had, but it seems to me that he has been able to cut down his swing a little bit and he's more in control in the box. The other issue with Stowers is that his strike approach was really lacking his first couple times in the major leagues, where he was attacking everything as if it was a 3-1 fastball rather than having a two-strike approach and putting the ball in play and understanding how to manipulate the bat, et cetera, et cetera. It seems a little better at that. So we'll see how it goes. I imagine that they will send him down to AAA and make him prove it over the course of 4, 6, 8 weeks before they give him another shot in the major leagues. We'll see.
Yep. We will see. We will see. Definitely. Well, those were three observations I had on players down there. Did you have any observations uh, on different players than the three that I just talked about?
Let me see. Well, Danny Kalum was a joy to talk to in the clubhouse. I first thing I did when I got down there was talk to him and geek out about his curveball. And that was a lot of fun. And he was telling me about how he developed his curveball, and that piece is on PressBoxOnline.com. He sort of got in depth on that. I told him I was sitting on the side one day, like first base side, and he came in for a relief appearance. And I told him, I saw your curveball start around the helmet of a right-handed hitter and end up around his knees. And I was amazed about the depth and command of it because most guys who throw that kind of curveball have a real tough time commanding it, whether they're a reliever, whether they're a starter. That's why you don't see many of those type of spike or knuckle curves. And so we geeked out about that, and that story is on PressBoxOnline.com. Really had a lot of fun chatting with him.
All right. Any other observations about players, about the upcoming season?
Craig Kimbrell and Corbin Burns look like they're right on track. They look like it was Saturday that looked like they're rounding into form, rounding into shape. And I'll have a story on both of those guys up tomorrow at PressBoxOnline.com. Interesting connection between Craig Kimbrell and Drew French. They've actually known each other for years. So
You told me the
yeah.
story. He
So
recruited
Craig
him
was
at
at a
Alabama.
Yeah, so Craig was at a junior college and he was there for 2 years and he was committed to Alabama. On staff at Alabama at the time, and I forget what year it was, I think it was like 07, 08,
It was
was Drew
Drew French.
French, who was a volunteer coach at the time. And that's sort of how he got his start. He was a young guy at the time. He decides,
Did he recruit him to
I don't
transfer
know.
there?
I don't
Okay.
know. And then uh, Craig ends up signing with the Braves because he got drafted in the third round. So he doesn't go to Alabama. Turns out many, many years later, they end up reconnecting in Baltimore.
Yeah.
So that was a neat little story, and talk a little bit about that in the story tomorrow.
All right. And one other observation I'll make is, he's been quietly getting a little better, but I was very impressed. I only saw him one time, but it was against the Atlanta Braves at their park, which means there were probably five or six
Right,
starters. I thought Dean Kramer looked pretty good. And I think with this team around him and as experienced as he is, he's going to be a bit of and Bradish down.
right.
He's going to need to be an innings eater, and I think
Yep.
he's up to the task, and I think he can win 13 or 14 games with this team.
Because they're going to ask him to take over that Kyle Gibson, Jordan Lyles innings eating role. That's
Yep.
what they're going to ask of him because they didn't bring one of those guys in. Corbin Burns is much better than an innings eater type. They
Yeah.
brought him in to be a top of the rotation starter. They're asking Dean to really take over that Jordan Lyles, Kyle Gibson role, and hopefully he wants to eat up some innings. That's his goal this year. And so again, we'll see. It's right around the corner, man.
All
As
right.
Buck Showalter used to say, our curiosity will be satisfied.
All right. News just in the last 36 hours, Blake Snell signed a 2-year contract with the
Yep.
Giants. The Giants suddenly have put it quietly because it was disjointed.
Right.
They put together, I mean, they acquired Robbie Ray in a trade.
Yep.
He would hopefully be ready in June, late June or
Right.
July to go with Blake Snell, Logan Webb, and they got the Matt Chapman. They got Jorge Soler.
Mhm.
Didn't they get one other pretty good player? They've quietly put together a nice off season, maybe to challenge Arizona for that second spot. And Arizona is not that far behind the Dodgers. So if you're talking about that, they're within. I'd say they're the three of those teams could be within 12 games of one another, all told.
Yeah. And I like what Arizona did this offseason, but they really need Eduardo Rodriguez to live up to that contract. They
Yeah.
really need him to be a dude toward the top end of that rotation.
No question about it. It all starts, believe it or not, the 2024 season starts at 6 a.m. tonight or tomorrow morning, our time, which will be what time in South Korea?
Mm.
Time for baseball. That's what time it'll be. It'll probably be about 6 o'clock in the evening or 7 o'clock in the evening, probably 12 hours difference or something like that. So, anyway, the
Interesting
baseball
note on
season's,
that
yeah,
on those games that Jackson Merrill made the San Diego Padres big league team,
yeah.
and he's from Severna Park High.
Yep.
So he's an Anne Arundel County kid, and good for him. And we've done a couple stories on him in the past, and hopefully he has a great year.
Yep. Let's wish them all the best. San Diego Padres with new manager Mike Schild will take the field against the Dodgers. It'll be Yu Darvish for San Diego and not Yamamoto, Tyler Glasnow. Yamamoto will pitch tomorrow night. I guess against Michael King, I'm guessing. Um, we'll see. It all starts in 2020. By the way, are those games, did they take one game away from each team's home games? And will one team serve
It's a
as
good
home
question. I
team?
don't know. I
Okay.
don't know the answer to
I
that.
somehow think the Dodgers are the home team tonight, but I don't know the answer to that. But let's
But that
hope
would
they all,
you would make sense. That would make sense.
yeah. Let's hope that they all travel safely and get back to the United States safely. Um, I will tell you this, I haven't done my first power rankings of the year. I did the mock about three weeks ago. I do think the Orioles are better than the Yankees now. The
Ooh,
Yankees, I was counting on the Yankees to be healthier this year, and so far they've lost Garrett Cole for at least 2 months. And who knows how long Aaron Judge will be out. He has not been put on the IL yet, though, Judge. He still shows up on roster week
apparently
two.
they're saying that he's going to be back in the next couple days, but they've been saying that for the past week, so
Yeah.
I don't know what to believe there. So,
And that's a really those oblique injuries, which they first characterized it as not an oblique, it's an
right.
abdominal strain. They're very tricky, and if you don't really know when it's done, where it's healed, you can re-injure that just like that. So anyway, 2024 baseball season is starting. We'll have it covered from start to finish on Glenn Clark Radio, with my Zooms, with my writing. Luke Jackson will be on with Ross Grimsley and I on Mondays on the Zoom. We'll keep you abreast of the Oriole prospects with Eric Garfield on Thursdays. So we got it covered from start to finish. You excited about this coming season, Luke?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
How could you not be? I mean, it's amazing
really.
watching this team's travel squad.
Yeah,
Jim Henneman wrote about it on PressBoxOnline.com, but they had 7 guys in their lineup today at Dunedin that would have been their top prospect 5 years ago.
right,
That's 7 of them.
right.
I mean, it's unbelievable the work that they've done, and uh, they did it pretty efficiently too,
Yeah,
and in the midst of a pandemic. And Mike Elias in his opening press conference said that he was going to build an elite pipeline of talent. I'd say he's done that.
yeah. He's checked all the boxes. Might not be the warmest and fuzziest guy in the room, but he has
And
done a
and now it's
remarkable
about
job.
translating that to postseason success. But
Yeah.
one thing at a time, they got to get through a lot. They got to throw a lot of innings before October.
And I'll say this, just I've talked about it before. I like John Angelos. John Angelos and I have known each other now for the entirety of the time that his dad owned the team. And I got to tell you, under some remarkable constraints that he had with the ability to fund this thing, he's done some remarkable things. First of all, picking Mike Elias, there was a big push. I forget his name right now, the old Dodger GM who would have been like kind of picking a Roland Heeman, a guy who had a good reputation of being a hail fellow, good Met, but he picked a young guy and he trusted him and he backed off and he helped him when he could financially, but they spent a lot of money on this, something that's not going to pay the it's not going to pay off this year or maybe even next year, Luke. But the fact that they were able to invest so much money in the Dominican, in Latin America, is going to reap some great benefits to this ball club over the long haul.
Absolutely, you are absolutely correct about that.
Yeah. So we'll welcome in the David Rubenstein era, or Rubenstein era, when it officially happens. But I don't get all the hate for John Angelos in this town. So I'll just say that and get that out of the way. Luke Jackson, I'm Stan the Fan Charles. We've been brought to you by the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. We've been brought to you by the Costas Inn. We've been brought to you by AJ Michaels and Superbook Sports. That's it for now. Enjoy your rest of the evening. Bye.